workshop on DisAbuse. It's an amalgam of 3 presentations. So we have Fiona, Weldon, who's then specialised on Disablist Bullying. We have Lian, McGuire, and Fiona who run through on the actual project. And then we have Irene and Marian, who will then will illustrate the sort of multimedia aspect of the project. Okay? So basically then the project is called DisAbuse, and it's a way to try to empower young adults, adolescents, young adults with special education needs and disabilities to learn more about bullying so that they can deal with it then in a more effective way. So essentially then it's a 2-year European Erasmus Plus program, and it involved partners, European partners. We have DCU, the IADT, we have University of Portugal, with Susanna here in the audience. We have Italy, Fondazione Mondo Digitale. I am not an Italian, does anybody in the audience excuse the pronunciation? And then we have Spain, University of Murcia. So all of us as partners then work together and obviously have different responsibilities to the project. So here we see that the aims of this DisAbuse project was to empower, as I said, young people, so 15 plus, and adults with special education needs and disabilities, and their support services, their care workers and teachers, and then to educate them and to take charge of the issue of disabled bullying, because as we know, they are at far greater risk than other children and young adults and adults in any sort of education environment or in the community as such. So how did we do this? Well, obviously we drew on the direct input and experiences of people with then the disabilities and special education needs, alongside obviously the international research and the best practice. And then we're utilising the techniques of e-learning, partnered learning, peer learning, and Lego serious play. And I think Lian has put what I'm actually saying on YouTube, but it's actually said by the young people themselves. So you'll be able to go on YouTube, and what I am saying now, which is on the slides, you will actually hear from the young people themselves, which is great. In fact, we could have played it now, and I could have just sat there. So essentially, the project had 4 main activities. And the first activity was then for each of the partners to do their own piece of research in terms of coming up with a country report, which involved looking at the research in the area, and then looking at the prevalence, looking at best practice and the legislative practice. And our individual country reports were then coordinated by University of Portugal, Susanna sitting there. All of this will be on the resources on the website. So that's the one activity. Second activity then was to obviously develop the learning and training course that was to be used cross-nationally, so that we have then now guidelines for educators and professionals. There are skills there, again, for how to deal with bullying, and then there are socialization skills as well as area of expertise. And this course was then piloted. And the idea was to evaluate, obviously, to see the impact that it was going to have. And this activity is then coordinated by ourselves, DCU, and the IADT. Third activity then is to develop a questionnaire so that we could look at pre and post to see the impact of all the work that has been done. And this will be coordinated by the University of Murcia. And the fourth then is to translate all of these resources brilliantly into a multimedia format, and that is what has been done then by Irene, Connolly and Marian McDonnell from the IADT, and you'll be seeing this now this morning as well. And then obviously to have this online, the final things, and obviously to have this online repository on Disablist Bullying that can be used cross-nationally. So it's a wonderful resource for anyone who then wants to further the education in terms of prevention and intervention of bullying. Now, alongside that, there's also, we've developed easy read materials. So there are resources and handouts that can accompany and parallel all the modular contents. So you can see it's been a huge amount of work. We're coming towards the end. It's a 2-year project. And now you're going to be taken through these different activities. So I'm handing over now to Fiona, who's going to talk about Disablist Bullying.
So, what is Disablist Bullying? Have you ever heard of it? Has anyone ever heard of it? No? Okay. So, it's a specific form of bullying that happens to disabled children, young people and adults. People with and without disabilities can engage in it. And it can be a single incident. So many different people can engage in it in any one day. Someone on the bus can do it, then somebody on the street can do it, then somebody in the pub can do it. All to the same person and all on the same day. Also, a single person or a group of people can engage in it over and over again. It includes similar types of bullying behaviours, such as verbal, physical, gesture, extortion, and exclusion. Disablist bullying is motivated by the negative attitudes and beliefs that many of us have about disabled people as a whole. Disabled people are devalued as a group, and most of us are hardwired to notice and judge difference. We are trained from an early age to avoid what we do not know, and sadly, we as a society have been consciously and unconsciously socialized to certain beliefs, ideas and values about other people, including those with disabilities. Research tells us that a lot of people with intellectual disability have low self-esteem and may have mental health challenges. Many people with intellectual disabilities have fewer friends and find it hard to adapt their behaviour when in the company of others. This is because they find it harder to learn the social skills they need to make and keep friends, and to know what social cues to use when they're in the company of others. And these are all very important components to bully-free life. Research also tells us that the effects of negativity and devaluation perpetuating difference. If you feel different, then you're more likely to become compliant and live your life to what is expected of you. Many people with intellectual disabilities spend their time in special services. Many are forced to live with other people that they do not get on with. Many people with intellectual disabilities feel that they live restricted lives, and the lack of choice and control over their life is a form of disabled bullying. Sadly, a lot of people with intellectual disabilities have told me that they expect to be bullied because it's just a part of living with intellectual disability. Thank you.
In the anti-bullying field knows that there's no such thing as a one-size-fits-all cure to anything, and this was never designed to be a panacea. In fact, we knew when we started this project, just for the sheer scope, just the concept of special educational needs and disabilities itself is so vast, covering so many different types of needs and abilities and diagnosis, that trying to find something that would fit everybody was going to be a challenge. But as Mona also said, this is a very high-risk category across all research, will show you this. And our own action plan here in Ireland targets people with disabilities as one of those groups that needs to be looked after, so we felt it was important that we find something, a jumping off point, and there's so little out there to actually help them on a practical level. So for both people with SEND and those who actually work with them. So in addition, knowledge around bullying itself and how to handle it is not only lacking amongst some SEND individuals, but basic differences like bullying versus conflict and how to identify it, what advice to give in certain situations is still not commonly taught or known amongst the teachers, the support workers and facilitators who work in support or care. And that's something that we actually discovered ourselves during the piloting stage of the project. It came out very clear. So, in order to try and create something that we could that could educate, empower, and reach as many people as it could across these groupings, and the SEND individuals and those who work with them, we decided to fashion what I'd like to think of as a windmill project. That's something that has a solid, fixed foundation, but whose parts kind of move with the wind that's blowing it. So, and it's the combination of the two that creates the power. Something that is both fixed and adaptable. So, basically, in our case, the knowledge is the foundation. The subject matter, what needs to be covered, is the fixed content. And then how it's delivered are kind of the blades of the windmill, and they're designed to be angled to meet whatever wind that blows it, depending on what group of people you're working with, what type of focus that you want to do. So it's designed to be that way. We'll show you as we move along. Fundamentally, this is, of course, a training course to be run by people who have an interest in or need to combat disablist bullying or to empower those most at risk to avoid or cope with it. Of course, as we said, many of the people who actually want to run these things have no knowledge of the content of the process itself. So for that reason, the materials were designed for use by individuals who may have no background in bullying whatsoever, who had never run a course on bullying. And so for that reason, we created a training manual to cover the content, and we divided it into two aspects. So, so the manual itself obviously covers the 6 different aspects, the 6 different courses that we run within the process. So it is obviously what is bullying and what is not bullying, dealing with cyberbullying, understanding bystanders, bullies and victims, what is empathy and respect, what to do about bullying, and staying strong against bullying. This is our core content, this knowledge that we feel is most important for people to know, both from an SEN individual and the people who are working with them every day.
And Lian, the two pictures on the page, they were in homework that 2 students had to do to get their certificate. So the top one is I am. So they had to do a collage of who they were and the things they enjoy and the things they like and the things that would help them not to be bullied. And the second poster was just about the importance of what we teach, the stop, walk and talk.
So, as I say, the content within the manual is designed into 2 different parts. The first section is what the people themselves running the course need to know. This is to cover people who don't really know much about bullying, who don't know the basics of it. So what we did was, myself, Fiona and the ABC had worked on a different project called Sonable, which was an online training platform, which is still running, for teachers who wish to train themselves up on what bullying was and how to combat it and the different aspects of it from a universal and a specific aspect. So what we did is we took the materials that we had designed for that and we incorporated it into this project. So it's a basic background running through, in this particular case, in the what is bullying section, on the fundamentals of bullying, basically what it is, the types of bullying, the effects, the impact, all the sort of things that someone should know before they ever start running these kind of courses in the first place. Okay. So then, the second aspect, this isn't changing on my screen, is how to actually run the course itself. So this is a step-by-step process. Initially, again, taking into account that some people have never run these courses and never actually done anything on bullying itself. So it's a step-by-step process, introducing the kind of materials, everything from the group culture aspect, where we start getting the groups to actually start talking, to introduce themselves, getting them comfortable, getting them set up, and also how then they're themselves supposed to behave during that course of the 6 weeks that this would run in least in our case. And then obviously we have other materials that we show how they put these things up. We have these things introduced every single week, and we have in this particular case the tree of knowledge, which is a learning process. So as they go along, they write down what they learn and they keep that themselves, and they bring it along right to the end of the 6-week course and add to it every week. So as you can see here, everything is done in a step-by-step process, and this is to run in line with the PowerPoint materials that we have created. Now, the materials themselves were created as PowerPoints with fixed content to be covered, so the text in them should not be changed because they run basically with exactly what we want to be covered. But everything else that's in them, as we'll show you, the visuals, the audios, the type of group work that are involved in it, can be adapted to what the person themselves who's running the course wants to do with those people. So if you want to, like for instance in our case, this blue section that you have here, which we'll touch on later on again, is suggestions from Italian partners who are experts in the area of Lego serious play methodology. So they have created, in this section here, instead of doing what these points are suggesting, you could use this section here, which is the Lego serious play options, and create an interactive group piece of work which will help people who aren't great with maybe verbal things to actually create something and talk about it in a sense of creating, as we'll show ourselves later on, creating scenarios, creating individual things, and they can talk about it. And they find that a lot easier. And they work in a partnered setting, as we've said in this, so it makes it more simple for that case. So you can either follow these step-by-step things that are there, or move there and use the Lego optional play, right? And we'll talk about it, as I say, a little bit later on. So we work our way through it, and ultimately, see, you gonna be okay? Yeah. So we work our way through the whole process, step by step. And as I say, you can introduce anything you want to. You can introduce role play, and we actually got this kind of feedback back as well from our piloting stage, that people thought maybe some role play might be good, or the utilising of paints and artwork, all these sort of things. Anything that you like, and you can certainly change, as I said, the visuals that are presented. Some people may feel it's too young, skews too old. So whatever you want to, that's why we created a PowerPoint thing, so that it would be malleable and to be able to be used in any way that the facilitator chose, as long as they stick with the content that's there.
And Lian, it's not just part of knowing who is doing the course, so understanding what they need and want, yeah, and how they need to learn, and how we can facilitate the way that they learn best. Say painting or collage or what, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. It's there to, as I said, these are the moving blades. This is what you know, your group that you're working with the best, so you make it for what it is, but the content is there to guide you. And you can run through the step-by-step process if you've never done it before, and if you can start to get yourself familiar with it, and then as you get used to it, you can change it to what you think works best. And that's the idea. And that's, I say, in that way we hope to cover as many different types of groups of people as we can, while still giving a foundation for everybody to work out. So, Fiona now will actually run us, because Fiona is our main facilitator and main trainer, and actually it's all based on her materials initially over the last 10 years of her hard work to create these kind of slides. So Fiona will run us through the actual process.
So like each 6-week session has a learning goal, and the first week they come along is around getting to know them, understanding how they're learning, what they need and what they want. And So we kind of maybe do name games or different sort of jigsaw games to match people together. And they learn about what bullying is, okay, and then they learn about what conflict is. And there was a huge shift in learning from this module, because a lot of people have difficulty in understanding and interpreting conflict and bullying, and it's just sort of over and over again, the repetitiveness of bullying, but also the intent to bully. And a lot of support staff and training staff had difficulty understanding that and managing that. And then we talk about what bullying is not, which is really important. And so we kind of look at their beliefs about bullying. So we kind of do a kind of a group of quiz and get each group to answer the question. Well, when answering the question, they talk about each question, and then they feedback on if the yes, no, or sometimes. And we also always do a group culture. So our group culture is kind of the rules of how we're going to behave. And that comes from them and not us. So we're not telling them they have to behave in any such way. They're telling us how they would like to be treated when they're in the learning group. Then we tell them that it's a universal problem. Of course it is. It can happen anywhere, everywhere. And it can happen to adults and children as well. So this kind of, this is really important, because many people have a perception that only kids get bullied, children get bullied. And adults with intellectual disabilities, as Moni said, and people with kids with SEND are more likely to be bullied than their counterparts. So this is what we tell them. So bullying is from one person or a group of people hurt you and make you feel bad and sad about yourself on purpose. And bullying has to happen over and over again to be bullied. And it means that it's only one way. Okay, so somebody has the power. So there's an imbalance of power. Okay, so, and this is interesting, wasn't it, Lian, in relation to having an argument or a row or a disagreement. And a lot of people felt that was bullying, and kind of got confused about that.
Yeah. And it wasn't, as I say, it was the facilitators as much as it was the actual individuals or users.
Yeah. So this was a really learning curve, wasn't it? For them.
Very much so.
Yeah. And then bullying has to be intentional. So you mean to do it, even though you don't, maybe bullies don't think they mean it, but they actually mean to do whatever they're doing, whether they're doing something or saying something, they're doing it to hurt someone else. So we go through and we talk about physical, verbal, emotional bullying, but then we get them to break into groups. And they talk about what they've seen, what they've experienced, what they know about each type of bullying, and then they tell us their feedback. Okay, so there's a lot of little small group work in this course. And then we tell them what bullying is not. So it's not about hurting your feelings by mistake. It's not about someone trips or hurts you by accident. And when you have to do things like everybody else, like go to work on one day and you feel, oh, I'm one day blues, but you still have to do it because it's part of your work. Or when your boss or teacher or a good friend or parent tell you, oh, because you have done something that you should have done. Okay. Yeah, so the interpretation of bullying can be confused there as well. So I can. And we always show this video on conflict. And actually, Lian knows this.
I do love this.
Can you put it up?
Yeah.
No, you
Sorry.
Hello, I'm Robin, and this is the Two-Headed Monster.
Hello!
And we're here to tell you all about the word conflict.
Conflict!
Right, conflict. You guys ready to show conflict?
Ready!
Okay, here we go. The Two-Headed Monster showing us conflict.
Pajamalena Chiki Kosovo! Oh, Ikejemo Odamado!
Guys,
What?
I'm not sure you understand. We need to show everyone conflict.
Conflict!
Right, but I'm afraid that wasn't conflict.
There's no conflict!
No, you see, a conflict is when two people fight or disagree about something, and they have a conflict.
Oh, conflict!
Oh, okay, great.
Conflict!
We're ready to try again? Okay, here we go. The Two-Headed Monster is now going to show us conflict. Take two.
Man!
One of them has a flower he says is his. That's a promising start.
Man!
Looks like the other one wants the same flower. This could be some conflict.
Share? Oh,
sharing.
Stop!
Look, that was very nice. That was lovely, actually. You were sharing, and that warms the cockles of my heart. But listen, my fuzzy two-headed friend, that was not conflict.
No conflict!
No conflict. I'm just sorry it wasn't. Conflict. Oh, wait! What? I just realized something.
What?
We disagree. We're arguing about something.
So?
We're having a conflict.
Conflict?
Conflict.
You can see what I mean about you can use materials from the internet, you can use whatever you like to, and you can tailor it. Obviously, in that particular case, I kind of like that one because the Sesame Street one has an ability to be able to work for all ages. With the actors that they utilise will mean for the people who are that slightly older, they still find something in it that they can enjoy. And so that's why I really enjoy that kind of one. But that's the kind of thing that, as I say, you can change, you can adapt, you can make whatever you want from it if you find something better. Or you can make, like in our cases of our Portuguese partners, they actually made some of their own materials to go with it because there wasn't a huge amount of stuff out there in Portuguese on disabled bullying to begin with, so they actually did that themselves, which is kudos to them, there's no two ways about that. So, sorry, as I say, we're just, sorry, go ahead, sorry.
No, like I was just going to say that when we show a video, we always kind of chat and talk about what they see and what they've learned and what they noticed. Yeah.
So, as I say, going through those things, then we obviously work through the whole thing of thinking about the conversation. So we run through all of these kind of things. And then we move on then to things like relationship bullying, which actually turned out to be a big point in our thing as well, where we discovered that relationship bullying is actually quite big amongst the user community. And that actually came as a bit of a shock to some of our facilitators, because we had one particular group, which were all boys, actually all men in it. And the facilitators said, no, it doesn't happen very much. And actually, as we worked through the group work, it came out that it happens a lot. And they didn't realise that, and they came out of it quite shocked. and having to refocus where they were going on. So it was very interesting what came out of it from that perspective. So then that all came out of the small group exercise, and then we actually work on to things like Disablist Bullying, and we just, again, show slightly more videos to get us talking.
With bullying, people can find is people who are observing it may feel that it may be a joke, or they're just having fun, when in actual fact it not only can be very traumatizing for a person, but it can also, in a sense, make a person who has a disability retreat into themselves and become very isolated from the situations they find themselves in. And in a sense, it can, if they feel that nobody is taking them seriously, it can often make them feel very lonely.
The importance of hearing your own voice obviously can't be restated too much. And as we were creating this across all the partner countries, we would pilot and show and work with these materials and get the feedback from the users themselves to help make sure that this hit the targets. And we've done a lot of recording ourselves through the whole thing, and we have interviews and everything else which will all go part in that, which again could be utilised by people themselves who want to run these things if they want to utilise those materials as part of this as well. So it's kind of almost like a self-perpetuating thing, and the website, which Irene and Marian will talk about, will be open to uploads ultimately from people, and if they have videos and things they'd like to have, that could obviously be done as well. So then we kind of finish up a particular section with kind of with a task. In this case, it's something like solving a problem tool, and then we recap the entire thing. But then we don't let them off the hook that easily. We actually have homework, which is all done in a multimedia format, which is a nice jumping off point then to talk to our IADT partners. So.
At IADT, we were absolutely delighted to work on this project, because at the Institute of Art, Design and Technology in Laoghaire, the south side of Dublin, we specialise in the research that we're doing in developing instructional resources for this user group. It's important that this user group aren't left behind by the digital revolution, and we are really passionate about developing online instructional resources to teach life skills to this user group. So previous projects that we had worked on, Irene and I and Laoghaire, were on life skills and on money management and on developing instructional tools to help users with mild and moderate intellectual disability learn these life skills to enable them full participation in our digital environment. So we created, with the inspiration from Fiona's materials, working on the project with our partners, looking at the materials that Fiona had developed with Lian, and we developed an online website called letsstopbullying.com. At the moment it's hosted on that cloud service. We were very inspired by your slides. They were so rich in inspiration. So just, this is the URL here, and for example, hearing one of your students, your participants, his name is anonymised. We'll just hear a little bit of his story. One of the
Bill is a young man and has Down syndrome. He lives with his mom and dad and goes to a special school. On his way home one day, Bill meets a group of teenage boys and they start chatting to him. He has often seen these teenagers in the past, but they never bothered with him before. Bill likes to make new friends, and he tells them his name and where he lives.
And so the story continues, and we hear of Bill's experience with bullying. I found it quite powerful myself when we were doing the translation, as Lian said there earlier, and just hearing the same story in Italian. And I know everybody here at this World Conference realised that bullying is a universal problem, but when you hear the story translated into different
Storia
languages,
1. Bill è un giovane che ha la sindrome di Down, vive con i suoi genitori e frequenta una scuola speciale.
I found that quite moving myself, because we say bullying is a universal problem, but when you actually have people from all tribes and nations coming together and discussing it, and then you start translating these materials into different languages, it just really struck me, because I come from a computing background and multimedia resource development background, and the whole area of bullying really came home to me through our engagement with this project and development of this project, and seeing that it is a universal problem. And just going back then to, that's the Italian translation there, if we've anyone from Italy in the room. The materials are there in 4 languages, as Lian said earlier, for the 4 participating partner countries. And there are quiz elements also. You'll see...
It is fun to boss other people around. Please answer below if you agree with the statement yes, no, or sometimes.
So you find there is a wrong answer, and you return back until you get the right answer, and you can't proceed unless you get the right answer. And as was said there earlier, and understanding bystanders, Fiona had asked us to create interactive elements in the homework to supplement the 6 modules. And one of Fiona's activities that she gets her participants to do is to fill out a pledge and to print it out, and to make a pledge not to use bullying behaviours and include other people who are being left out, and that users can put in their name here and print out this pledge, and you'll see that it will print it out and make it available to the users who are participating in the course. And just showing the self-concept game there that I showed earlier in the slides, there are activities across these various areas of your own sense of yourself. So building your physical self. For example, I know that it's important to get sleep. If I don't, I'm not looking after myself. Or I need to take exercise to build my own sense of resilience. Definitely swimming is one of my resilience builders. And lots of sunshine, which unfortunately our visitors aren't getting today in Dublin, but hopefully they will see it before the conference ends. And once again, Fiona was particularly, you see from previous work that Fiona and Lian demonstrated, very important to get the participants doing stuff, bringing materials home with them, putting it up on their mirrors work or their fridge, and thinking about the things that build your own self-esteem. And this is one of, as I said there, the building your wall of self-esteem. As you build your wall, the areas that make you feel better about yourself, you'll find your wall builds up here. And as you build a strong wall, you'll get better able to cope with those bullying behaviours and those destructive behaviours. And in that way, then the students at the end can print out, once again, their wall of self-esteem. So that's just an overview of the multimedia materials.
Hello everybody. I think everybody who's been up before me has now said everything I'm about to say at this point, but I'm going to say it anyway, okay? So if you'll bear with me. The first thing I would just say to you is, if you have your phone in your hand, why don't you go onto the website? It's disabuse.eu. And the reason, if you don't have your phone in your hand, don't worry about it, but the reason I would like you to go on and see the website is literally because everything that has been presented to you here today is available on that website. So all of the resources, everything, all of the multimedia, the PowerPoint presentations, the manual, they will all be available. Now, certain things won't be available until after September, but there's a lot of stuff that is available there already. So the website is your place to go. If you have an interest in Disablist bullying, this is where you go. Not only just to find out about Disablist bullying, but if you want to run the courses, all the material is there. So the resources that exist there are very varied. Again, everybody has said they're available in 4 different languages. We're very proud of the fact that it's available in 4 different languages because we feel that the reach is getting out there. We're not just reaching countries that are English speaking, we're reaching Spanish, Italian, Portuguese, and perhaps more in the future as well. We also, as part of our work in the beginning, each country gathered all the publications. So again, if you're a researcher or an academic, this is going to be of great interest to you. So the publications are things like, you know, what is happening in the world, the publications in journals and books, the best practices in each country, what's happening for people with SEND. As Lian said, it's a very broad term. So a lot of the work, a lot of the research looks at specific areas of SEND. So it will be somebody who has autism, it will be somebody who has intellectual disabilities, somebody who has physical disabilities. So all of those areas are captured here in the publications. And we also have best practices. We have some documents on people who have intellectual disabilities, who are in the workplace. We have a lot of information that is gathered there. So that is somewhere that if you have an interest, particularly an academic interest in this area, we provide a huge amount of information for you. We also, on top of that, we have those easy read manuals. Now, this is something that we discovered. We discovered a lot of things along the journey of this project. And if you noticed, when we were talking about some of the multimedia documentation, you noticed that we used people who, the pictures, the images were of people with intellectual disability or people with SEND. And we thought at first, when we started this project 2 years ago, we thought there's loads of stuff available online. But when we went online, everything that was available was very childlike. There was cartoons, everything was kind of aimed at children. And myself and Marian, in the work that we do in IADT, and Fiona as well in her work, we discovered that people, you know, adolescents, adults with SEND, they don't want to look at children's items. They want to look at stuff that is specific to them. So that was one of the things that we implemented here. So you might not have noticed that along the way, but as you go through the website, you will begin to see that. Also, the audio stories that Marian talked about, we got people with SEND to record those. And be honest with you, initially it wasn't people with SEND. And it was once we sat down and thought about it, we went, this doesn't sound right at all. So again, little changes make a big difference when somebody with SEND is trying to identify with other people in their specific area who may be bullied as well. So and then the easy read manuals that I was talking about, that's something we learned as well. And a lot of that came from Fiona, where we discovered that you can't just put academic material up on a website. You can't just put what you think works up on a website and expect everybody to be able to understand and read that information. You actually have to change that into an easy read document. So you have up there, we have lots of different things. We have easy read documents on what is bullying, what is cyberbullying. Even we have things on social problem solving, dealing with bullying wounds. Lian has some stuff up there on guides to staying safe on Instagram. There's a huge amount of information there. So if you do work with people with SEND, that again is your place to go to give them information on what Disablist bullying is, but also staying safe online. And then the last bit that we kind of are going to introduce to you is the Lego series play. Before that, I think Mona is just going to give you a little bit of preliminary feedback on the evaluation of the project in Ireland. So I'm going to let Mona talk.
Actually, we had hoped to actually give you a chance to actually have a go at the Lego. But I think we're running a little bit late on time as it is, so I'm afraid we may have to bypass it. But just a quick word on the Lego Series Plays. This is something, as I said, our Italian partners had introduced as an optional extra, and it works incredibly well. The feedback that you'll see online on YouTube and on the website ultimately will feed this back. It has proved so popular amongst the group. The difficulty, of course, is that to be to work with it properly, you actually have to have formal training with it. But what our Italian partners have put together within the manual means that if you follow those step-by-step guides, if you have Lego and you have enough with the people that you're working with, you can simply do that without actually having to go through the formalised training. But if you wanted to do a full set, you'd have to go through that. But it is an optional extra only. But we can honestly say, as Mondo was from the evaluation that will come up next, that it proved incredibly popular for most of the group, even though maybe some people with slightly more mobility issues would prefer to say the Duplo stuff, the larger Lego, and the stuff for that perspective. But it's there, and it is definitely an option and well worth looking into for people who are doing it. And I am sorry that you guys don't get a chance to build a dunk today to see what it was like, but anyway, we'll have a go. So.
I'm not going to keep you at all any longer now, but just to say that one of the activities was then the evaluation of the project, so pre and post. So 3 modules were then piloted across European partners, and this evaluation, in a sense, is ongoing, and the results will be presented now in Rome at our final sort of meeting, which is on the 27th of September. Of course, you're all welcome. Okay. Now, in Ireland, we decided to just do our own evaluation to be able to present you here with some sort of results. And again, it's extremely promising and very, very positive. I'm just really here are the questions that were being asked, but we don't need to go into any details there. But now you can see some of the answers which we got then from the participants, and you can see that the content was very easy to understand. Obviously, they really enjoyed it. The sort of care workers and the teachers that were with the students themselves found it extremely useful. So all in all, very good, know more, understand more. And again, as Lian said, the Lego obviously is really attractive and it's great fun and it really cements the learning. There's no doubt about it. I would really recommend that all of you get dug into the Lego because it just, and with your students, no matter what age, it's fantastic. It just cements it, it's inspiring and whatever else. So yeah, so it really helps to understand the whole concept of bullying, and you just go away then feeling that you can cope, deal with it better, so that you can prevent it and intervene whenever you come across it. And that goes for the students as well as their care workers and teachers. Fiona, time is up really. So look, thank you all for coming. And